Welcome to another upcoming episode of Connect. In this episode, Kevin Skillen will be discussing his numerous roles at Massage and Myotherapy Australia, while maintaining a very successful business in Melbourne and Geelong, serving athletes in a number of sports, including the AFL and the Suncorp Super Netball League. Stand by.
How to get clients back after COVID. Hi, my name's Elicia. I'm a business coach specifically for the massage industry. What I want to share with you are some really simple things that you can implement right now to be able to get your clients back after a lockdown or after COVID. What we find is that some therapists right now are really busy. When they open back up again, they're utterly slammed, and other people are finding, where are all my clients, where have they gone, and what can I do? And so the first thing I wanted to say is I want to actually talk a little bit about what marketing is. Marketing is just communication. Some people are like, oh, I don't do marketing, I just do word of mouth referrals, or I rely on different channels. Fantastic. All marketing is simply communication. So the first thing I think that is really important to know or to think about is just to acknowledge where you're at personally in around lockdowns and COVID and things like that. And I think when you can acknowledge where you're at, it's much easier then to be able to then communicate the message that you choose. For example, some people really enjoy lockdown. They enjoy the kind of being at home with their family, connectedness, togetherness. Awesome. Some people, well, that's not the case and they find it really challenging. I think what's really important is to know that it's absolutely okay to just acknowledge where you are at either end of the spectrum or anywhere in between, depending on the day. The next thing is then realizing that marketing, if it's about communication, it's about communicating the message of what you do in the treatment room, what you do hands-on with people, and being able to expand that message to connect with people outside the treatment room. So what we're kind of looking at then is how we can connect with people who already know who we are. I think some guidelines when it comes to marketing is being really just being real. Hey guys, this is what I'm doing in lockdown today, cooking something with my kids. Or today was a bit of a struggly day, there were some announcements and whatever. Like, it's okay to actually share your personal story of how it's affecting you. Bearing in mind that we don't expect our clients to hold us, we're there to hold them. So just kind of, I think there's a fine line between that you can work out with yourself. I think being consistent is important as well, and consistent might just look like 1 or 2 times a week depending on how you're feeling. And the other thing that I think that we have the opportunity to share is some facts around how you keep your clients safe and what you do to keep your clients safe. Whether that's choosing to close, whether that's choosing to open, whether that's the protocols and procedures that you have in place to keep things clean. Tell your clients that. Make sure that they're aware of what it is that you're doing in order to keep them and their families and their loved ones safe, because that builds certainty with your client base. And the other thing that I wanted to kind of challenge you with maybe is finding something that you haven't implemented in your business yet and working on that as a project. For example, setting up email for the first time can be a little bit tricky. You've got to kind of learn out, the different kinds of platforms like MailChimp. How do you send it? What do you do? How do I get my list in? All that kind of stuff. So there's a bit of work that goes in the back end of setting that up for the first time. If you've got the time, it might be a really great way to be able to utilize that. Maybe you've always wanted to do videos, but you're not quite sure, it's like research a couple of YouTube videos on how you can do videos and connect with your clients in a really authentic and powerful way. Right now, we know that there is a lot of fear, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of hate, there's a lot of all sorts of stuff through social media and online. If you have the opportunity to inspire positivity with the clients that you see, then absolutely take it up. Utilize one of these strategies to be able to connect with your clients who are needing connection right now. It's one of the challenges of COVID, so I'm really excited and I trust that this is super helpful.
Hey everybody, this is Dave Sheehan from The Connect Show. We've got Kevin Skillen with us today. Hi Kevin.
How you going, Dave?
I'm going well. Now, some of our members would be familiar with who you are and what you do at the association. Yes. But did you want to just give the rest of the folks at home just a bit of a background on what you're doing with the association now?
Sure. So was essentially the graduate liaison officer. I've now moved into the interim association manager role while Alex is on maternity leave. I have a large involvement in the certification program. So I am the lead site support assessor, and I'm also a director on the board for the association. So my role's quite varied, from grassroots, where I go out and speak with students, training organisations, through to members, through to applicants being certified, through to sitting on the board, as well as day-to-day management of the team at Massage and Myotherapy Australia in the association role.
So you're very heavily involved in what's going on at the association. Since I've got you on, Kevin, did you want to just talk briefly about the certification program and how that's rolling out at the moment?
Sure. The pilot program has actually finished, but we are about to relaunch certification again. We've got, I think, over 100 members that are going through the certification process, and it's essentially a quality assurance process where we just interview you, we come out and do a site support visit, and when I say site support visit, it really is supportive. It's not like an audit or anything like that. It's done in a really user-friendly, one-on-one basis where you have lots of dialogue with the member, just to get them to have the best possible practice that they can have, so that they have policies in place, their practice is running smoothly, and they meet all the benchmarks and exceed the benchmarks for the industry, I guess.
So I've had some members ask me questions about certification, and their understanding of it was that they would be assessed on their skill set as opposed to what you were talking about. So quite clearly that's not the case.
No, absolutely not. We don't assess their hand skills at all. It's really more looking at their business practice and ensuring that they've got good practices in place so their business operates smoothly. So it's ensuring you've got you work well with vulnerable people. It's ensuring you work well with minors. It's all around the policy and procedure process, making sure that your business structures are set up correctly, but it certainly doesn't assess your skill level at all. We assume that because you've got your qualification, you've done professional development, you've been a member for at least 12 months, which is one of the requirements, that your skill set is okay. Otherwise, the training organisation wouldn't have passed them. So it's not about the hands-on practical skill at all. But it is around practical terms to make sure you have sufficient linen, that it's laundered correctly, that you clean down, you've got a COVID-safe plan. So, yeah, it's a great program, absolutely great.
Fantastic.
And everyone that has done it use it to market themselves. So like a niche type of therapist.
Yeah, so it's sort of best practice that we're after in terms of running a business, really.
Absolutely. Yep, best practice and quality assurance. Make sure you're the best quality that you can be.
Fantastic. Now, you having that role, you've come from a business background originally?
Yeah, absolutely. I studied business at uni. I went in and joined the bank. I went into a graduate scheme, Promising Young Officers scheme, and progressed through the ranks of the banking system. Got sick of the banking system and I actually studied massage while I was working for the banks. I was involved in the banks when they were going through all the mergers where Commonwealth Bank sold part of its entity off, and Bank of Melbourne and Westpac and all that sort of stuff were developed. So from there, I studied massage and got involved in teaching. So
now that was was it VU in Melbourne?
That was at Victoria University, yes. Yeah.
And what roles did you have at VU?
Okay, so I started off initially as a sessional teacher, teaching relaxation massage, and you wouldn't ask me to do a relaxation massage now because I would not know how to do it, and I'd probably be the worst person at doing it. But I started off teaching in that program, which was sessional or casual. I moved into a contracted teaching position with them, so taught the diploma of remedial massage. Then from there, I went into the program manager role. So I had all of massage and complementary therapies. From there, I went into the head of school role for sport and science, managed the whole area of the sport, massage and science components. From there, I moved into a strategic leadership position where I gave advice to the leadership team, and I ended up with a portfolio of sport, health and youth. I also did a stint as the head of school for nursing, which was an interesting concept for me. And from there, I went into the associate director role for a short period of time.
Right. So you've had a real opportunity to experience at different levels what tertiary education's about. So that's really lovely.
Yeah, no, it was a good experience. I think I spent 14 years there, which was great. It was a great organisation to work for. Good teaching. I really enjoyed it. It was great.
And at the same,
sorry,
I was just going to say, Kev, at the same time, you had a clinic.
I did.
So that's a good segue into talking a little bit about. I did want to talk a little bit about working with elite sports people.
Yeah, sure.
As part of this interview, because the idea was when we were talking about it, that you'd talk in terms of how you built up, I guess, a bit of a reputation to work into that sort of area of expertise working. And we're going to talk a little bit about Sean Higgins from North Melbourne, now down at the Cats AFL team, Geelong.
Yeah.
So did you want to just sort of talk a little bit about the clinic and how that evolved over time?
Sure. So when I was initially employed as a sessional teacher with Victoria University, I'd obviously studied massage, graduated. I set up my practice with a business partner, Fran Hall. That was in Seddon, and it was a very small shopfront operation. We initially did all of the work ourselves, just Fran and I. So we're open 6 days a week, and we worked the 6 days from 10 in the morning till 8 at night. They were a long slog of hours, but it was all worth it in the long run. So when I studied at VU, I opened the practice, I think it was in 2003, after I completed studies. I then went back and did some part-time teaching for Victoria University, as well as managed the practice. But the interesting thing was that whilst I was studying part-time, because I was still working full-time in the finance industry, whilst I was studying part-time, we had to do some clinical hours, and it was our choice as to where we did those clinical hours as part of our study. So I desperately wanted to get into this sport environment, and I thought this is a great opportunity to do that. So I tried to contact the Western Bulldogs to do some work placement or some student placement with them. And I kept getting knocked back. No, we don't take students. We don't have students. We only have graduated therapists. But I kept persisting and kept nagging this poor guy. And I think he got sick of me in the end, and he said, oh, for God's sake, yes, I'll give you a go. So it was very nerve-wracking, the very first couple of sessions in there. But it was interesting because I was the first male therapist they'd had work for them.
Oh, right.
They had been used to having female myotherapists. So it was a very slow process to get me started and to get acceptance, I guess. Just the players not used to having a male therapist, that was all. But once they were used to that idea, it was all fine. I was booked out every time I was there. And what happened was some of those players decided that they wanted to see me outside of the club. So they ventured out of the club after hours, I guess, into the practice in Seddon. So that's how I initially started. But it was a good learning process. I learnt a lot at the Western Bulldogs. And at the end of that first season with them, when I was a student, they asked me to come back and work for them, do some part-time work for them, which I was able to do. And I was pretty lucky insofar as the bank I was working for at the time were all about giving you career opportunities and doing work-life balance type stuff. So it was good because I was able to take some time off during the week to go and do at least one session with them. So I kept my finger in the pie with the Western Bulldogs, and that's how I ventured or they ventured into the practice. I started off with one player led to two led to three, and it was really word of mouth that the players, if they were saying they were getting good results from what I was doing with them, so they obviously told their teammates. And once one player talks to another player, it just goes through the locker room like wildfire. You could well imagine.
Yeah. No, for sure. Now,
Yeah,
interestingly, we've been running Connect for actually we're having a meeting in a few weeks about, I think, our 50th episode sort of special thing that we're wanting to put together, 1,000 hours of interviews, which has been absolutely fantastic. And I remember Sean Higgins. We had Sean on, and we filmed Sean in your clinic, probably at the very beginning of when we started Connect. It's all those years ago. So you're still working with Sean, and he's moved on to the Cats now.
Yeah. Sean and I have a great working relationship. I think I've worked with him for about 13 or 14 years now. So initially he was a player at the Western Bulldogs, but I didn't actually see him when he was at the Bulldog. When I worked at the Bulldogs, I didn't see him, but he ventured into my clinic because he was referred by another player. So I worked with him whilst he was at the Bulldogs, and obviously I left the Bulldogs and increased my work in the clinic. Then he went from Western Bulldogs over to North Melbourne, and I went and got some work over at North Melbourne as well, which was great, good experience. And from there, he's gone from North Melbourne now at Geelong, and I'm still actually treating him. I still see him every week pre-game, but he's been a great athlete to work with, really good.
And with Sean, what would a typical treatment be for him with you?
Yep. Look, we do a lot of myofascial release, a little bit of trigger point therapy, some METs, myofascial cupping, some dynamic cupping within doing some movement as we're cupping, a bit of Chapman's reflex. So it's a combination of a whole range of things, and you won't believe it, but for an athlete who likes deep tissue massage, also some manual lymphatic drainage. So it's a wide, varied gamut of techniques that we use on him. But the good thing about him is that he's open to try anything, and he'll listen to your advice and take your advice on board and be willing to try it, which a lot of athletes become very set in their ways, especially pre-game. It's like, no, I've done this pre-game for 3 years. I'm not going to change anything that I do. They come I call it superstitious. They're a little bit superstitious about changing techniques and about changing therapists and things like that, because they've done it for so long. They think, they've got to continue to do that. But he's a little bit different, a little bit left field, you'd say, but absolutely brilliant to work with.
Yeah, fantastic. Hey, could you offer some tips on, young graduates of massage or myotherapy, and some tips on how to get yourself into that particular area of the industry? Because not everyone wants to be into sports. There's many different opportunities out there for young graduates in massage and myotherapy. But if they do want to get into sports, can you offer a couple of tips?
Yeah. Look, I know that a lot of the AFL clubs now won't take students, but if you went to a local club, like your local regional club, I guess, get some experience there. Once you've got some experience, they're more likely to take you. So my advice would be start at the local level, do some time there. And when I say do some time, get as much hands-on as you can, as much experience as you can, and then, venture up the ladder, I guess. But be persistent. Keep nagging them. Don't take no for an answer. Just keep going back and nagging them, and they'll soon let you in, I think. But I guess the other thing that happened for me in the sports environment was that because I started at Western Bulldogs, some of those players ventured off to other clubs. Like they went off to Melbourne, they went off to Carlton. The physio went off and is now the rehab manager for Melbourne City Soccer. So from that experience initially at the Western Bulldogs, I'm still treating players from Melbourne, players from Carlton. I've got a whole range of North Melbourne players. I have players come in primarily for lymphatic drainage from Melbourne City Soccer. And just from word of mouth and people talking to each other, athletes talking to other athletes, I've picked up a fair bit of work with the Melbourne Vixen girls as well.
So it's being aware. What you're saying is be aware of the network out there that you're starting to develop over time, and really take the opportunities as they come up, as far as referrals and so on.
Correct, and they sort of permeate themselves. I haven't done a lot to get that to happen. It's all just natural permeation where people have left one club, gone to another club, and they've continued to see me. So that's been great. So I have pretty much all of my clients are elite athletes.
A
para-Olympian who's was a cyclist, now a rower. So it's word of mouth. It's really got out there, which has been great.
All right. Well, there are a couple of fantastic tips, Kevin. So thank you so much for spending some time with me today, having a chat about where you're at. You're wearing a lot of hats at the moment within the association. It's been obviously fantastic to have you on board in all your different roles, and awesome to hear about how you progressed with your clinic and moving into that sort of sports area. It's kind of fascinating, and thanks for offering a couple of tips as to everyone at home. All right.
Great.
So everyone at home, I hope you've enjoyed our little chat with Kevin Skillen today, and look forward to seeing you at our next Connect. Thanks a lot. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.